As the technology for facial recognition continues to advance, developers are debating the idea of giving these algorithms the ability to recognize race. To discuss this, let's turn to identity theft and scams expert, professor at Bentley University, Steve Weisman. Thank you for being with us, Professor. So let's start here. What's the harm in giving computers or AI the ability to judge race?
Well, it's interesting because, in fact, I don't think there's harm. I think this is a matter of accuracy rather than racism. The kind of algorithms that have been used with the facial recognition that have been done primarily by law enforcement in the past were such that African Americans were not properly distinguished, and so there were people who were suspects who were investigated that would not be under a more accurate algorithms using these different factors. So, in fact, I think this is something that is very, very positive. I'm far more concerned about the misuse of this, the invasion of privacy in a commercial setting, where perhaps your computer could be using this kind of software to watch you and send you perhaps advertisements for products or make judgments based upon what it sees. So I think including race is just a way of improving this. It's not targeting races, it's actually making the software better.
Now, as a college professor, how do you see the argument of racism in facial recognition technology? Because some would argue that race is a social construct to begin with, and that computers would not be capable of being racist. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned that, because my first thought and comment when I saw the facial recognition being used with racial factors was race is not necessarily clear. We are a melting pot. But what I think we're doing is dwelling too much on it is, in essence, black or white. What we're saying is that the algorithms will be able to recognize subtle distinctions between races to make it more accurate. And making it more accurate is not making it more racist. It is just indeed making it such that people will not be singled out because they fall into a broader characteristic.
Now, what about this, Professor? If, like you said, you were more concerned about this on the broader scale, that the technology would, eventually bleed over to our home computers, and they'd be able to advertise very specific ads to us. Do you think the race part would play a card in those advertisements? Because, as we know, marketing companies do want to know our race.
Yes, and I think that is a possibility, and that's the question of our privacy and how this technology is used. In the right hands and being used for law enforcement purposes, where it is not being done for racism, but really for identification, I see less of a problem. But Steve Jobs said years ago, if you're not paying for a product, you are the product. And so what we see now is we see a lot of social media that takes our information. We're not paying for it, but it takes our information, it sells it to advertisers, and now what they can do is Big Brother can be watching us and can be making recommendations for various products based on how they interpret our race to be or other indications of us. So I'm more concerned about that invasion of our privacy that I see as a real flaw than using new algorithms to make them more accurate.
Now, as an expert on scams and identity theft, would there be a way for someone to trick this facial recognition software, and if you add in race?
Yes, there's the possibility that this could be misused, the possibility that this could be misused by scammers who will be observing people and preying upon what they view as vulnerabilities.
All right, super fascinating stuff. I guess we're going to have to wait and see as the technologists keep moving forward with this stuff, and we'll certainly have you back on to discuss it some more. Thank you so much for your expertise. Steve Weisman, law professor at Bentley University and host of Scamicide.com.